It's just to show like small incremental actions over time, and that is like the basis of like my coaching. Welcome to the Level Up Ministries podcast. My name is Joey Bonfiglio.
I'm Sandy Bonfiglio. Thank you so much for joining us. So our podcasts are all about leveling up our mind, our health, our faith, our relationships. So last week's podcast was all about it wasn't what I expected. So how things sometimes in life just aren't what we expect them to be, or they don't look the way we expected them to be. Today we're going to talk about exercise. So there was a point in your book, How to Build a Level Up Mindset, where you wrote about different activities that you did that really helped you move forward and kind of get unstuck during that time in your life where you were struggling.
Yeah.
Can you share some of the exercises that were helpful?
Well, it's interesting because, growing up playing hockey and soccer and some other sports, like, always conditioning was like one of the tools, to perform better but over time, once you get into the real world, if you will, I continued to run, every day, but, there was a point during that time, like I said, I was overweight. But yet I would still run most days during the week, so obviously there was diet that was also involved in that as well. But that was, and we'll talk about nutrition, in the next podcast. But one of the things that when I was struggling and going through, the anxiety and layoffs at work and those things. And I think I had mentioned in a previous episode, because of the staph infection I had to take this medication for 10 days that gave me this extreme headache. And it was brutal because I had to work through it. I was going to work every day. And I just remember telling myself, once I get done with this medication, I have to, get in shape and take care of my health and nutrition. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, what was interesting was, during that time, you had mentioned, hey, why don't we plank? Why don't we start planking? Mm-hmm. And, what was interesting was at first I was like, nah, I got my own thing. I run and play hockey a couple times a week. But, you had asked me, a few times. I'm like, all right, let's do this. Let's do it together. And usually I just like to work out by myself. But I'm like, all right, let's do this. Yeah. So I think we set a time initially for a minute and a half, or we set our timers on the phone. We held the plank, and for those who don't know, a plank is kind of like a stationary push-up, but you're on your forearms instead of like pressing down. So so we both did it. We barely got through it. Shaking, yeah. And so we did that for a couple days, I think in a row, maybe two or three. And life got busy, so we have 3 kids. So we kind of went back to kind of you doing your thing, and I I did mine, but I stayed with it. I did it for, I think I had done it for a few more days, and then on Sunday, I'm like, well, I did it for a minute and a half. And again, we're barely, or at least for me, I'm barely getting through the minute and a half. But I'm like, all right, well, let me push what's 15 more seconds, And so that, I think it was like that Sunday, I increased it by 15 seconds. Mm-hmm. And again, barely got through it. So for the rest of that week, I did the 1:40 minute and 45, and then the following Sunday I'm like, well, what's 15 more seconds? And then it became 2 minutes. And what I didn't realize through doing that was not only the benefit of the working out and the core, your core strength, and all the things that go with working out and gaining muscle, and the whole thing was, I didn't realize at the time, but I was training my mind to overcome, like, well, what's 15 more seconds? So I kept doing that. I kept incrementally increasing those every Sunday, 15 more seconds. So, you're doing it for 6 days in a row. Mentally you can do it because you just did it. Yeah. And, and then it just the consistency and the repetition of doing it allowed me to incrementally increase that time. But more importantly, the mindset, I started applying that technique to different things, and that was like kind of the really the game changer as far as like what got me kind of unstuck was this mindset change, and it all started with planking, with an exercise, you know.
And saying yes to the
Yeah.
offer of planking
Oh
with
yeah.
me.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Well, that's what's funny too is like because you had asked me, I think, no, you know, over a period of months, you know,
Yeah.
before I think I got the staph infection, and finally I was like, let's do this. But right, and it all stemmed from.
I'm not a major exerciser. It just happened that I grew up a dancer, and you know I do like to do some exercise, and somebody had mentioned starting to plank for my core. As I'm getting older, I'm like, I got to strengthen my core, and to try and be held accountable, I figured I'm like, I'll just ask Joe to help me, and that's where that all stemmed from. So
And,
I'm just glad you said yes.
and I'm a creature of like habit
Mm-hmm.
and routine, where it's like I really don't like to change things much. I really don't like change, and that actually what's funny is now change. The mindset of change is huge, because if you have to develop that, because as we're finding out, you could plan life things
Mm-hmm.
and life is going to throw a curveball at you. So the more you can adapt to change throughout your life, you know, the better you are, and that's a whole, you know,
Yeah.
thing in itself. I'll tell you. I'll add to that because this was kind of funny. So I'm increasing the time over time, and I'm at work. So I'm working at Lego at the time, and my buddy Jay comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, there's so we had this health and wellness. That's what it was. A health and wellness group came, and they set up in, I don't know, our cafeteria or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and throughout the day, so you can go and get your blood worked or blood pressure checked, and all these different tables set up. These vendors, that's what it was, and. So he comes to me, you know, in the morning. He's like, or right before the afternoon. He's like, "Hey, they have a one of the booths has like a plank challenge, you know, or whatever, and you can sign, you know, you put the sign up, or you put, you know, you do it, and you could win something or whatever." And I was like, you know, and I had at that point I was at, I think, 18 minutes. So I had, this is, you know,
Yeah.
a few months had gone by, and yeah, I was up to 8 minutes. And again, I'm only going 15-second increments. I'm not trying to, you know, um, add, you know, I'm staying with my system. But anyways, at that point I was at around 18 minutes, and so finally at the and I wasn't gonna like, I had no desire to like go and, you know, check it out. But at the end of the day, he comes back and he says, "Hey, the record is, you know, for I think for the men the record was like 4.5 minutes." And so I'm like, "Well, I'll go walk over there or whatever," you know. And I'm just like thinking, like, now the reason I'm saying this is like when we were at a minute and a half, even at that point, everything, I barely get through whatever
Mm-hmm.
time I'm doing. However, you know, 4 minutes is nothing. You know, at that point, I could do that in my sleep almost. You know, so I look at it and I'm thinking, and so they must have talked about me before I got there. Like, "Oh, I heard you're the plank guy or whatever." So I'm there with Jake, and now now it's winter time, so I'm wearing kind of like this with a sweatshirt on,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm like, well, you know, I still haven't done I usually do my planking at night. I'm like, I guess I could just do it here instead of going home and doing it, you know. So I did it, and you know, I did and it was like 18 minutes. I'm sweating. I got, you know,
Yeah.
a thing on, but my point was, if you had told me when we were first doing it, even if it was
Mm-hmm.
2 minutes or whatever, that I would even at that point be at 18 minutes, I'd be like, "Oh, that's crazy. Who could do 18 minutes?"
Right.
And here it is. I looked at that sheet. I'm like, 4.5 minutes. Like, that's, you know, that's nothing. And it's just to show you like the power of your mind and what you're capable
Yeah.
of. You know, your mindset. So.
Was that when you won the Lego princess set for Caitlin? The castle?
No, no, that
Oh, that was
was
another one.
that was playing air hockey, but they felt so bad. So the winner, the winner got like a tumbler, you know, like
Yeah.
a thermos, whatever. They're like, "We feel so bad. Do you want to take the yoga mat?" You know, and it was like a Lego, yeah, yoga mat. I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I'll take the yoga mat," you know. But they felt bad because it was so, you know, good. But and again, this isn't to like brag or anything, but
Right.
it's just to show like small incremental actions over time, and that is like the basis of like my coaching,
Mm-hmm.
you know, now that I'm in in with the book, it's you can apply those things. Like I do intermittent fasting, and we'll get into that with the nutrition. But it wasn't like, all right, I'm just gonna close this window and only eat during these 8 hours. It was like I slowly, worked my way into this window where it's manageable, and
Because I think we all want a quick fix. And at the end of the day, nothing is quick. It all takes time, it all takes consistency and hard work. And so, but with that, it is possible.
yeah, it comes down to like a lifestyle change
Right.
instead of a diet. Or even, it's interesting. I was watching Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan interviewed Adam Sandler a few weeks ago, and yeah, and he was talking about like they're working out, and and Adam's now, he's not where the weight he wants to be, and he was talking about how his daughters are always encouraging him. Well, Dad, didn't you feel when you were in that good shape when you were young? Didn't you feel good and this and that? And Joe was talking about how a lot of times people, like, you get into these grooves where it's like, all right, I'm gonna go work out, and you go too hard, right? So you run 4 miles and you do massive amounts of weight, and then the next day or two, right, and then you're exhausted, and you're like, I can't. You can't keep up with it. I don't know what the word is, but it's unmanageable, right? So, but when you do these incremental, it's like the plant. It's like you just do it slowly, and that, hey, this is going to be my new lifestyle. You just work into it, and then it just becomes second nature. It becomes a habit, and yeah.
So for me, the exercise that made such a difference for me was rebounding. So especially when I had chronic Lyme, I had a lot of issues with just detox and circulation. So somebody had recommended to me to rebound, which is jumping on a small trampoline. And at that point, I was pretty fatigued, and so I'm thinking, how can I exercise? But I needed to, and it was important to. And so I kind of applied that same theory in regards to increasing my time, and I decided to start on the rebounder for 2 minutes in the morning. So I did it for 2 minutes, and then like after a week that I had done it in the morning for 2 minutes and at night for 2 minutes, and so I was kind of increasing it that way, and then every week I would add a little bit more time. So I got to the point where I was doing 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes at night. But rebounding, I don't know if many of you know the benefits of rebounding, but there really are some wonderful benefits. Obviously it's low impact, which is nice. It helps strengthen your core as well. It helps with circulation, and it really helps with your lymphatic system, which in your lymphatic system, there are a group of vessels or tissues and organs in your body. And I'm no doctor, but this is just my understanding, and I just know this makes me feel so much better, that help with the fluid in your body. It helps to store and release white blood cells. It helps with waste management and collecting dead cells. And your heart has a pump. Our heart pumps, and it helps circulate our blood. Where our lymphatic system doesn't have that. So we really need to be in motion to help move things along through our lymphatic system. So I found that rebounding made such a difference for me, and just increasing it to incremental times, just continuing to increase it little by little, I was really able to get up to a point where I can now rebound for 20 minutes. And it's enough for me. I don't need to continue to increase to kind of at a point where like I'm satisfied with that. And I can tell a difference in my strength, in my core, in my circulation. Just so much has improved. And my energy level, and now that my energy has gotten better, it also helps me to sustain a little bit longer. But I would absolutely recommend for anyone who just hasn't even exercised in a while, or just wants to do something that's low impact but that would have a benefit. Rebounding is something that's super simple. You can also get one that has a handle on it. So for someone who's older, it just feels like you need that stability of holding onto something while you're bouncing a little bit. But the goal is just to really, stimulate your limbs, move your waste around, move your toxins, help you with detox, help you with circulation, again, core strength, balance, but there really are some wonderful benefits to it. So that has made a difference for me in my healing.
What's nice too is it's an indoor, you can do it indoors, right?
Yeah.
So it's like weather doesn't permit you from the weather's not going to be a determining factor whether you can, it's easy to just go and do that activity. Same with planking. I like planking because you can be at a hotel, we can travel and still do that. So yeah.
It's a small one, so you can move it anywhere. So sometimes I put it in the living room. Sometimes I actually put it in our closet in the middle, and so it's mobile, which is nice, and it's super simple. So that's absolutely something that I would for sure recommend. In regards to just scheduling exercise in, what is your recommendation for how to kind of schedule that into your daily routine?
Well, for me, it's probably going to differ with different people, but for me, I get up early I run first, so the planking I do later in the day, but usually I like to get up early before the sun comes up and really get going. So running early in the morning is it just sets the tone for me. It gets my blood flowing and not to say that I can get that out of the way, but I feel if I don't do that, my day is kind of off. So for me, it's really that's the first thing I do is I'll get up and go for a run, pray and then go for a run, and then come back. I'll take a cold shower. I have a whole list of habits and routines I do, but I'll come back and I'll take a cold shower, which will also just activate a lot of things that and just get me going for the day. So, but we'll talk more on that.
Yeah. For me, the morning doesn't always work because I'm a high school teacher, so I get up early and I do like to have time to pray first. And so after I pray, I tend to kind of do other things, and the morning just tends not to work for me. So I do like to rebound or exercise after I come home from work so that it kind of transitions my work time to my home time. So it's like I come, do that, change, rebound, and then start like the evening of, dinner and taking care of the kids and all of that. So I think it just mentally helps me make that switch from work to home. So that works for me.
Yeah, and for the plank, I'll do when I come home, so that way it helps me not like kind of overeat during the day too. So it's like, so running in the morning kind of sets a tone. It's like, all right, you start off healthy, and then, I'll have really one big meal, around lunchtime, but then, so then by the time I'm home, I'm not bloated or what, so then the plank seems easier, and, you tend to, and then that way afterwards, if I want to have, some protein after that to build the muscle or whatever, then I'll do that.
Yeah, so we just want to encourage you to think about your routines and your schedule. Think about how you might be able to add some physical exercise that is just good for your health, but also challenges your mindset. And to continue that or begin that if you haven't begun that routine, but to really think about how you can do that to help create just healthy habits and routines. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we can't wait to see you next week.
Take care. Thank you. We'll see you next time.